Going on in the Tennessee Valley, it's going on Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Expect mostly clear skies out there through the nighttime. Getting colder, though. Overnight lows 21 to 23. For Wednesday, lots of sunshine. Still quite cool. Highs 43 to 46. For Thursday, though, a nice day. A warm-up begins with more sun, highs back into the 50s. For lunch or dinner, come to Guthrie's, home of the original golden fried delicious chicken finger with their special world-famous sauce. Open daily, locations in Trenton, Signal Mountain, and Ringgold. Go get Guthrie's. It's always good. And I'm 1412 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Ward.
On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
When the weather turns bad, turn to AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. On the net, hotnewstalkradio.com. Follow us on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. From the Hot News Talk Radio Weather Center. Chattanooga, we've got you covered. When the weather turns bad, the Tennessee Valley turns to Hot News Talk Radio.
Go, 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 go. You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Thing about sports is because it brings up the stories of all kinds of different people, and the career arc of Lane Kiffin is a really interesting story, in part because Lane Kiffin himself is a really, really interesting guy. Like just super interesting in terms of where he was at when he first started and where he's gone to now. And even what happened to him last night, there's some things that happen that are so Lane Kiffin. I can't explain it any other way. You have that friend, right? Like everybody's got that friend where the thing that they're known for, they do something that is so them that you're just like, you can't even be mad sometimes. You're like, that's just who that guy is. Lane Kiffin got left behind by the team bus after the game, which is the most Lane Kiffin thing that could have happened to anybody of either team involved in that game. Like, there's nobody else for whom the bus would have left. Like, if you had said the bus left Nick Saban, I would have been like, no, that doesn't seem right. You leave without the head coach? You know, the bus leaves without Dabo Swinney, leaves without Deshaun Watson, leaves without Derrick Henry. The bus would never leave without those people. But Lane Kiffin is the offensive coordinator of the team. Surely the bus wouldn't leave without Lane Kiffin. No, bus takes off without Lane Kiffin. I mean, the driver fired that thing up. Do they have a roll call? How does that work? How do you get left behind by the team buses? And it's crazy because he's an important guy on that team. Come on. The bus didn't leave Kirby Smart behind, and Kirby Smart's leaving to coach Georgia. Really? What are we doing? Nick Saban, Alabama, your national champions in the year of 2016. And my favorite thing about college football is also my least favorite thing about college football. And like this national championship game basically showed that to me. Okay, which is this. The way that we figure out who is good and who is bad in college football is polls. That's how we do this. We have a lot of teams. Most of them don't play one another, and we just sit down and rank them. Right? Like since the college football playoff era started, we've had a committee do that. Previously, we had computers do that, and we just rank them. 1, 2. And to me, this seems like a really bad way to figure out who is the best at playing a game, because you do that on the field. You play the games on the field. And, I don't think there's any dispute that Alabama is the best team in the nation right now. Just the way that they won the big games that they won. I'm not saying that there's a dispute that there would have been anybody else that could have beaten them. Because the way that they were playing, I have a hard time believing that anybody was going to just beat Alabama. The way they handled Michigan State during the season or during the playoff, I don't buy it. They leveled Florida, and I understand Florida wasn't looking good at the end of that season, but leveled them. Okay. I just don't buy that anybody could have beaten them. But at the same time, does this not seem like a terrible way to go about trying to figure out who the best 4 teams are? Could somebody have done a better job against Alabama than Michigan State? Michigan State, with one of the best quarterbacks in the nation, and Connor Cook, could not score points. They never entered the end zone. They didn't come close to entering the end zone. They looked bad. They looked really, really bad. Okay, just an awful football game that I was just watching because it was football and it was on. It was just bad. Just terrible, terrible football being played by Michigan State. And you're just like, man, could anybody else have done that? Or is that team that good? Or is that team that deep? And you're just left with so many questions at the end of a college football season. Okay? This season brings up questions about last season. Ohio State. I understand Ohio State was great last year, okay? And again, this isn't to say that they weren't the best team last year. I think they were. I think we got it right. But do we just keep messing around with this until we get it wrong? Because here's the thing. They were the number 1 team all season long until one day they weren't. They got knocked all the way out of the top 4. Could they have been in it still? Should they have been knocked out? Could anybody else have beaten them last year if they had run into them? I don't know. And you were just left with so many questions that, for me, the destination is always worse than the journey when it comes to choosing a national champion in college football specifically. Because the journey is filled with teams losing to one another, beating one another, coming down to the end of the season. There is so much carnage and there is so much wreckage involved in trying to figure out who is even in the top 4. That stuff is fun. I've never had more fun with that in my whole life than the last couple of seasons. That is thrilling stuff. But then you get to the national title game, and this year it was good. Last year against Oregon, Ohio State and Oregon, it wasn't good. And you're just sometimes left wondering, is this the best team really? Or did they play the second best team really? Or any number of scenarios that could have played out. You're just not left as satisfied. And I think that's what makes this system not as much as people don't like the NFL playoffs, right? Where you can just get hot, show up in the playoffs, and basically end up winning the Super Bowl. We've seen it happen to the New York Giants twice. They all but back into the playoffs, and then once they're in, we're hotter than the Devil's Anvil, but we are on fire now. Okay, that they beat the Patriots, who were to that point undefeated. Who is actually the best team in football that year? I would argue that that's still the Patriots, even though the Giants beat them in the small sample size of one game. But it's so much more satisfying that way because the Giants had to win a number of games on the road to even get to the Super Bowl, and they did. There's a qualifier that we can see there, and we don't get to see it in college football. We basically hear back from the committee, hey, we got together and talked about this for a few hours, and this is our 1, 2, 3, and 4. And it's hard to deal with because you disagree sometimes with how they're ranking these teams. Sometimes everyone's scenarios are different. For instance, Sporting News national college football writer who joins me here on this show a lot, Bill Bender. Bill is a guy that he thinks that if you have a better record, that should count for more. You should be ranked higher if your record is better. If you have not lost any games, you shouldn't be ranked behind a team that's lost one. Then there are other people who are a little bit more looking at it a little bit more subjectively and saying, but look at the quality of the loss. And that's where I fall a little bit, I think. Look at the quality of this loss as compared to the quality of those victories. And you're just left wanting a little bit more. With that said, I don't think we got it wrong last night. I think number 1 and number 2 were playing each other. Those were the two best teams in the nation. Those are the ones that decided that had to be there. And I think that in some ways, this is a vindication of the college football playoff. Okay, but does this happen if we expand it? Do things get trickier if you expand it into 8 teams? Because then you blend both elements. The element of you could miss the playoffs because you're still being polled and you're still being ranked. And then on top of that, you have to be hot once you get in, because you could be knocked out in the first round by a team that's just playing better than you at that moment, but may not be a better team than you overall. And that's something to think about. It really is. Especially if you're an SEC fan, because the SEC is a deep conference. The conference beats the snot out of each other. This is AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. I'm Keon Rose. This conference beats the snot out of each other. Everybody, like most of the teams in this conference, could be in a Big 10 or be in a Big 12 and be near the top of those conferences, I think. Okay? Teams that probably couldn't do that, probably, most likely, like a Vanderbilt wouldn't be able to. I don't think Missouri would be able to, though Missouri came from the Big 12, so I mean, who knows? There are a couple of teams I don't think they would be able to, but I don't see why the way Tennessee's been playing lately, they wouldn't be a really good Big 12 team or a really good Pac-12 team. Well, Pac-12's deep too, but like a really good like Big 10 team or ACC team. It's a deep conference. And so when you are picking up these 1 and 2 losses, you're picking it up usually within the conference. You're not picking up a loss to Northern Appalachian State. You're usually picking up a loss to Alabama. You had to play them. Okay? You're usually picking up a loss to Tennessee. The way Tennessee was playing in the second half of that season, I don't want to play them. You're picking up losses to Auburn. That they didn't have a good season this year, but typically, I don't want to play them either. And then A&M does A&M things, and, who knows? Who even knows at that point? Like they're capable of beating you, and they're also capable of just pooing the bed and not scoring points in a game that they ought to dominate. I don't know what the deal is with A&M, but they're capable of winning tough games as well. So you just look at that and you just go, how subjective do I want this to be? Okay, how subjective do I want this to be? Is this the best format for my school being represented? That's something that I think about a lot. This is AM 1240 on News Talk Radio. You're listening to Clutch with Keon Rose. I want to shift gears here back to Lane Kiffin. And the reason why is because I heard a rumor that I think is really, really exciting, and it involves the Titans as well. Lane Kiffin has been linked to the Tennessee Titans job. Also, Texas A&M head coach Kevin Sumlin has been as well. But the thing with that is they've got to fulfill the Rooney Rule. You've got to interview at least one minority candidate for the head coaching job before you interview everybody else on your list. At least one minority, at least. And then once you do that, then you can interview whoever you want. And so Kevin Sumlin has been linked to Tennessee, but I think that's mostly because they need to interview a minority coach, and Kevin Sumlin is black. But Lane Kiffin to Tennessee, being able to coach Marcus Mariota, that's a good job. Like a lot of coaches have been fired from their jobs in the NFL this season. The whole situation with Black Monday, as it always goes down every year. Chip Kelly's out. Lovie Smith's out. Whoever it was that was coaching the Titans, he was out. you just guys just get fired. You know, the firing just it's a performance-based job, and so it's inevitable if you're on a team, if you're coaching a team that has been struggling. And I really like these jobs, though. Like the teams that are opening up. Tom Coughlin's gone in New York. The teams that are opening up are teams with talent and potential and depth. I like the way that the Titans are poised in the AFC South because it's a terrible division of football. And honestly, the Texans got into the playoffs because they play in the AFC South. If you can imagine somebody cleaning up Tennessee a little bit more, sharpening that, finally getting Mariota to the where we think his potential can be, because I think he's got a very high ceiling and he showed flashes of that this season. If he can stay healthy, I like this team for someone. And I really like it for Lane Kiffin. Like the offensive side of this team, that's got to be thrilling. I really think that would be a good hire if they did that. But also this then affects Alabama. Who do you replace Kiffin with? You know, I mean, it's rough. It's real rough. Who do you replace guys with when they leave? But Kiffin to Tennessee, that would be huge. If I were Lane Kiffin, though, I'd probably stay in Alabama. You're going to keep winning in Alabama. Someone is going to try and offer you a really good job where you can probably choose the terms that you want to choose better and more easily. I say stick around in Bama. Though if he left, I think I could think of several fans in the SEC who would be happy to see him go. And Alabama would then lose an OC and a DC in one season if that happened. Like, that's complete turnover in terms of defensive side of the ball, offensive side of the ball. Complete turnover. And I don't know what that does to a school like Alabama. You're always going to get your recruits. Saban recruits well. Plus, Alabama is such a huge brand. There's no way they don't get whoever it is that they want. It's huge. It's absolutely huge. I want to talk about a little bit later in the show, a little bit more about the NFL and some of those job openings, as well as some college basketball, getting into that part of the season here. And obviously there's going to be some recruiting coming up ahead. What I want to know, though, is can the SEC start attracting some quarterbacks? I understand that the reputation of them not having good quarterbacks is overblown, especially in the national media. The national media blows that up way too much. And you're listening to Clutch with Keon Rose. I'm Keon Rose here on AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. Should take this time to mention that you can follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Search Hot News Talk Radio. You can follow me on Twitter personally at SportsCloud. You can also listen to us online. 3 ways to do that. 1, YouTube. Search Hot News Talk Radio. 2, go to YouTube or go to your internet browser. Search hotnewstalkradio.com. We stream live. It starts streaming as soon as your page opens. You can minimize it. You know, go to another tab, read whatever news you wanted to read, do whatever work you had to do. We don't take up much space. We do not. And 3, use the TuneIn Radio app. Search Hot News Talk Radio. Give us a follow. Press play. You can have Hot News Talk Radio everywhere you go. So those are the 3 ways that you can listen to us online. And I'm glad that you're giving me your time today. I really am. I'm absolutely glad to be here. I had a great holiday, and I'm not used to the cold that I came back to. Not happy about it. Not one bit happy about it. Okay, the cold weather that I came back to is unnecessary. I came back and it was 19 degrees when I came back. I just left Texas, man. I wasn't prepared for any of this. And I love Chattanooga, but I wish it weren't so cold right now. And it's bipolar too, because like sometimes during the day, it'll get kind of warm and you're like, wow, this is nice. Like a nice balmy 50 degrees. And you're like, wow, okay, yeah, I can do this. And then nighttime, it's like 17 degrees. And you're looking at little puddles that built up at the side of the road and they're blocks of ice. And I didn't sign up for any of this, okay? There's a reason why I went to Texas for 3 weeks. There's a reason why I went to Texas for 3 weeks. It's because it's warm down there. Okay? When the sun shines, that actually means something. Just FYI. Sunlight has meaning in the state of Texas. It means the place gets warm. What happens here in Tennessee in the winter is the sun shines, and that doesn't mean a darn thing. It is just so infuriating. And then I had to come here, and I'm like, okay, I'm trying to figure out what it is that I'm going to talk about in terms of college football after the national title game coming through that. Because here's the thing. Everybody has how much they're invested to different sports. I watch all of them. And I've had to lean more towards college football since I've lived here. And I don't mind that at all. But I watch all of them. I watch hockey. Nobody here cares about hockey. Not talking it. Okay? Predators are good. Don't care. Nobody wants to talk about it. It's not happening. But I watch all of them. And so it's just like, I'm not the guy that's going to sit down and start following high school players to figure out who's going where. I am not that guy. If you want to come here and talk about recruiting and all that, I respect you, and I will try and talk a little bit. But I'm not going to sit here and go, oh, look, who's recruited the 3-star out of North Dallas. Okay, this is not happening. Okay, look at this kid out of Western Memphis. He's going to be in Auburn next year. I don't care. Like, when you have the players there, and that's why I love National Signing Day. Like, National Signing Day is the day that lets you pretend like you know what you're talking about. Like, I'm just following and going, hey, look at this 5-star. He just went to Tennessee. Isn't that great? Isn't Butch Jones cleaning up at the recruiting? Like, I like to figure out after the fact who went where. That's me. I don't want to follow it day by day. Oh, look who's going this way. Look who's going this way. I don't care. I do not care. It is so uninteresting to me. I cannot explain to you how uninteresting. It is the nerdiest thing. Okay? If ever you saw someone super into comic books or super into science fiction or anything like that, and you thought your first thought was to make fun of them, look at your life and see how much you know about random high schoolers that you've never met because they have a possibility of playing at a school that you root for. You huge nerd. That's you. That's you. Understand that. I'm a nerd too, okay? I sit there and look at look, let me look at Kobe Bryant's splits over the last 7 days. Like, I do that. But you're a nerd too. I don't want to hear this from anybody. Like, I listen to the other sports shows in this town, and I like them, and they're good. But I'm just like, man, we are talking about high schoolers that none of us know. Is this not the nerdiest conversation that we are having right now? Is this not it? Because so far as I'm concerned, it is. So far as I'm concerned, it is. And I just want to start talking about Tennessee basketball. Okay? SEC basketball is kind of interesting to me right now because of the weird place they're in. They've got a guy who's going to probably be the number 1 overall pick in the NBA draft in Simmons. Okay? Labissiere is going to be really high. He's in Kentucky, plus Kentucky's always really good. And Tennessee's got Rick Barnes, and Rick Barnes is looking to turn that program around. And Rick Barnes is a really good basketball recruiter himself, as well as being a regular season winner. Rick Barnes is going to win you games in the regular season. He's going to make you get into the tournament. And I think that where people are going to run out of patience with Rick Barnes here in Tennessee is going to be his inability to win and go deep into the NCAA tournament. It's been a long time. He's taken Texas far into the tournament before, but it's been a long time. And now that he's at Tennessee, I'm interested in seeing if he's capable of doing that, but I have my doubts. Because he coached for the team that I like. And I saw year after year after year, we have these guys, they'd be really good. Second round of the tournament, Texas gone. You know, and it's just frustrating, like how many years of just making the tournament can you be satisfied with, especially when you're a school like Tennessee and you have a basketball history as rich as that one, and the Lady Vols have been so good for so long, they've rendered the men irrelevant. Tennessee hasn't been relevant in the basketball platform for a long time. And it's, to me, that is frustrating. They've got ups and downs this season, but this is just Rick's first year. I think he'll get Tennessee to where they're consistently making tournaments. He's that good. But how long can you have a guy coach and not win the big ones? You know, Mark Richt. It's Mark Richt all over again. Mark Richt will get you 9-10 wins a season. What he won't get you is a big win. You know, and that's what he wasn't getting you. And I think a lot of Georgia fans were okay with that. Like, here's a good guy coaching this team really well. Here's a good guy coaching this team, doing a good job. He's successful every year. We're just not winning the big one. And we're okay with that. Can you be okay with that with Rick Barnes at Tennessee? Is Vols basketball fan okay with that level of futility? Because Rick Barnes is older. It's not going to last as long as it did with Rick. I can tell you that. This is AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio Clutch with Keon Rose. New time, same old tricks. Or maybe I've got some new ones. Also, here on the station, The Herd with Colin Cowherd. Catch him at 11 to 1. You've been listening to Clutch.
I'm blowing everything up. We're starting over. I'm doing a new show. I want guys who push it to the middle of the table and go over the top. Take a risk, fail miserably. I'm right, and I'm not wrong, and I'll never back down. Conflict works. Allow it.
It's The Herd with Colin Cowherd. Right here and everywhere. Noon Eastern.
You give us 12 minutes and 40